Okay, so just as I was hearing that opening song, the lens to my glasses fell out, Dave. But wait, I have to back up and tell you that just as I sat down before the show was to start, I went to put my glasses on. And Dave, do you see these? Yeah, fix these, Dave, for me. So I put on my glasses and I literally could not see anything on my notes. And I thought to myself, I can't believe that I'm now going blind. I could be going this blind in 1 week. And then it dawned on me that there's no lenses. So sometime between last week when I was here and this week, my lenses completely fell out of my glasses. And so Dave is fixing them right now. So I have no idea what my notes say. But here's what I can tell you is our show is exactly about that. For every one of those times where we can't see things clearly that we once did, and we get to choose every time and all the time to put on a different set of glasses and look at things from a different perspective. And when we put on the lens of faith, we see so much clearer what it is that God is trying to do in our life, because we keep wondering if and when God is going to show up, and he keeps doing what it is that he's doing. So I'm kind of buying some time right now until Dave can give.
I don't want to break them.
You won't break them.
Okay. All right.
We're good.
They're not. It's not.
It doesn't matter.
It's not perfect.
It's so not perfect. This is funny because this is actually the best my glasses ever are. This is like the least amount of smudges that we have. Yeah, it's perfect. Right. Okay, so anyway, that was just a perfect thing. The lens fell out of my glasses because you know what? Since my kids have been home, the lens has fallen out of my glasses, literally and figuratively, in the way that we have had these mountaintop experiences. And clearly, the dynamic of my household has been a little bit different in the month of December because it was just my man and I and our two daughters. And Bob kind of bummed out about that, Dave. He really misses the boy factor a lot. And even though I wanted to be a boy until I was 20, I just don't really fill the spot of being his son. And so the fact that the boys came home has really been awesome. You know, Chandler came home in the early December and Carter came home towards the end of December. And so I, of course, as the controlling, manipulative, calculating person that I am, I had a little conversation with each and every one of my kids and talked about how different it is, you know, when kids come home from college and the dynamic of our household and, you know, completely trying to set the stage for nothing but an absolute successful, you know, visit with our family while the kids were home from school. And Dave, we were having that. I mean, my man and I were laying in bed night after night and just saying like, do you remember when, you know, things were so different when the kids couldn't even be in the same room with us, never mind the same room with one another, when everything that came out of their face was poisonous and life-sucking, and like they were sitting around like playing pool and playing cards, and of course they were making fun of the fact that they were doing those things. But I guess, what do you do, Dave? What do you do as a family when you get back together? You just
Not look at your phone.
Yeah, so that was a big thing. I have a big problem with the phone, but that's a whole other thing. So here's the thing. When Dave and I started the show today, I was literally sobbing to the point where tears were just completely streaming down my face. And it hasn't been so long since that happened. But part of it is what's been going on in my household is coming to an end. And it's going to go back to the way it was. And there's so many things that have happened in this month that have caused me to question, has anything really changed? And as much joy as my kids have brought me in the last few weeks by being together, I want you to know that there was an absolute time where I allowed them to suck the ever-living joy out of my existence. And it cost me $300 for them to do that. And so I'm going to tell you about that when we get back. But you are journeying right here with Judy, right here on Lake 96.1. And thanks for bearing with us at the start of the show when, you know, we had to put in a new lens. So we'll be back after the break. All right, so welcome back. I'm seeing my notes a little bit clearer now, so thanks for sticking with us through that initial segment. And here's the deal. The whole thing about my kids being home was we were having so many mountaintop experiences where it was just amazing to me, the change that had taken place, the growth, the maturity, the appreciation for the value of each other's presence and what family really means was just at an all-time high. that it just blew my man and I away. And so I was trying to revel in that so much, Dave, that I decided to spend $300, actually $200 plus lunch, which is another $100, $300 that my household cannot afford to lose at this point or waste on this family outing, Dave, to go see. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it. What was it called? Oh, Holidays. It was like it was spin-off of Cirque du Soleil. Do you know what that? Cirque du Soleil. It was in Milwaukee, and it had all these great reviews, and oh my gosh. And so, of course, the kids complained like crazy the whole way there because it was so, they've convinced themselves to make it a life-sucking experience. So from the day before, or the day that they found out that we were going, they complained about how much it was going to stink. And you know what? That's exactly what happened. They spoke that out into existence. And at one point, I was seriously crying out of pure frustration, Dave, because I felt like I had raised the most ungrateful, unappreciative for human beings on the face of this planet. So here's the deal. I wrote this little poem, and maybe this will shed some light on some stuff, okay? About really the truth of the matter was I tried to convince myself that nothing had changed, that our family was still the same life-sucking group of individuals that we were in the past. And the reality is when I chose to put on some new glasses and look at that from a different perspective, I'm here to say that everything has changed, and I'm so grateful for that. So here's what I have to say about that, okay? What has changed and what has not? For a while, I almost forgot. The seeds were planted and he caused them to grow in his time and his way. How, I don't know. The very things I taught and preached were the very words I would hear them speak. Dave, it's so crazy when I'm hearing my kids say the same thing that I told them over and over that they thought was so stupid. Okay, so I have been confirmed and even inspired that this whole parenting thing can make you tired. Dave, just know that it's so going to make you tired.
Going to?
Yes, going to is, it's like it is, was, and forever will be. So many years I wondered how things would end up, and here we are now. The countless spying, yelling, and tears. What a change in just a few years. A full contact sport, I believe it will be, this parenting, Dave, for all eternity. I recall the sleepless nights, the conversations, and countless fights. Their souls I will fight for and never give in. Their destiny is to be in heaven with him. Dave, do you like my poem so far? The world will not tell them what it is they need to know. It will lead them and guide them to places I don't want them to go. So their vision, their values, their mission, their plan, I pray God will do what only he can. Do you like it? I love it. Okay, I'm almost done. In the light of his truth, he will guide them and lead while fulfilling in them their every need. Oh my gosh, I love this. Their greatest desires placed deep in their hearts. I do love it. Dave is laughing because I write these things really it's from the depth of my soul that I write and it's just, this is what's been going on. So the greatest desires he's placed in their heart, but not without him, they'll only have a part. I won't let them settle for less than God's best. He will give them the strength to withstand every test, to grow up and look back at how far they've come and God's perfect plan that's never, ever undone. There are no mistakes, only lessons learned. Before I know it, it will be their turn to be the change they want to see in their job, their world, and their communities. No more excuses, no lowering the bar. This life we're living, it's going to be hard. Okay, and now I have so many tears. This is my last line. Okay. To bless them and keep them focused on you, so in every situation they know what to do. So anyway, Dave, come on, that's my little poem for my kids, and as much life-sucking as that's taken place, and it's gone from like this overwhelming love and laughter and joy and just complete reveling in each other's differences and gifts and successes and whatever to, saying the most hateful, meanest things. It's like, no, it's just who they are, Dave. They just came out of me, and so they're very intense. And then Bob had something to do with their conceiving, their being conceived. So, and he's the most irritable person on the planet. So, there's times where we had this unbelievable stuff, And I would think to myself, like, are we really going there again? You know, we've been through this. And it's so easy to dismiss the great things and look at it, Dave, like you do from the glass half full. Like the reality is there's 6 people living in this, not necessarily small space, but it becomes very small when you have such big personalities and differences and opinions and experiences and what you feel is right and all that stuff. And so I'm so sad that it's coming to an end, but I'm so grateful because it made me so mindful of every one of those times where I was in a place with my children, especially my oldest one, struggling to remember what it is that God said. You know, I used to beg him, I used to bargain with him, and I used to promise him just to answer my prayer or hear my petition. Like I would plead about the well-being of my children and their souls, Dave, like just the world we live in and the things that they're exposed to. And so I'm guessing that there's people out there who, when they're doing that same thing and they're not feeling like they're getting an answer, the reality is we wonder, like, is there God? And like, why isn't he cooperating? Like, why doesn't he care? Does he even know me? Does he even love me? And I'm here to say that God does love you and that he is so faithful to complete the work that he's begun in us. And when we're unfaithful, he just goes to plan B, Dave. And that's what I totally dig about God. But in those moments of silence, and sometimes that silence seems deafening and we're wondering, like where he is, like those times when I know you can relate to this, some of these listeners right now, when the mountains are steeper and the valleys are deeper than you ever thought possible. I am telling you, it is in those times where God is doing his greatest work. Okay, this was supposed to be a happy show, Dave. Why am I crying so hard?
It still can be.
It kind of is. It kind of is because my tears are tears of joy for God's faithfulness and for every person out there who's thinking that their significant other, their children, their job, their circumstances will never, ever change. I'm here to tell you that they can change and they might even be changing, even though you can't see it, even though you can't feel it, right? So I remember Bobby and I used to plead and beg and wonder, like, why isn't God focusing on this situation in our house? Why isn't he fixing the frustration? Why isn't he freeing us of all this anxiety and worry and concern for what the kids would end up being, Dave, if we didn't keep doing what it is that we were doing? And so the great thing is that things change, people change, and situations change. And you know what? It is in God's time and in God's way that those changes actually take place. And I want to tell you about a little change when we come from the break about a young man who hated me so much. He wrote in Carter's yearbook, "Your mom is Satan." Isn't that so rude? So let's talk about that. That's not all we're going to talk about, but I'm going to let you, I won't tell you who it is, but I'll just tell you how much that situation has changed when we get back. You are Journeying with Judy right here on Lake 96.1. Oh, yeah. Greg Cunis, thank you for sponsoring Journey with Judy. Okay, so that's what he said. We're reminded this morning that he said, I won't give you more than you can take, and I might let you bend, but I won't let you break. So for every one of those times where we question not only God's presence, but if he's ever going to move or act in our life in a way to take us out of a situation that we feel is going to kill us. I'm here to remind you that sometimes God is delayed, but he never denies us the grace available to deal with whatever the situation is. So we can ask him to remove the burden and he can say no, but that doesn't mean that he isn't present. It doesn't mean that he has forgotten you or forsaken you, isn't fixed on you or focused on you. It just means not now. And you know, I remember years ago not being willing to praise him for the partial blessing. And now I'm so willing to praise him for the partial. And of course, Dave, I always want more. Like I literally was so discouraged when my family fell apart that day because it was as if I was so willing to invalidate, Dave, and negate all of the change that I had seen visibly with my own 2 eyes, with my man saying, oh my gosh, we're really seeing this and living this. Our kids who actually want to be here more than they wanted to be somewhere else. Dave, that has not been my experience with my children. I want you to know that my son Carter spent more of his life away from our home. I mean, he had to come home every night, but that's about the only time he came home. Like, he did not want to be there. And now he's walking around looking for us when we're not paying every bit of attention to him. So things change. And you know what? I look back now and I know that God's grace was so sufficient for us during those years of high school. I guess it was just high school, Dave. The high school years killed me, and my boys are convinced that they were easy compared to what my girls are going to be. Dave, no way I'm sending them to your house. I am absolutely sending them to your house. So this song was so good today because it reminded me, and it will remind you that, like, no matter what, we can't fear. That's like those times where we're going through the fire. We got to hang on even when it's down to the wire, because we stand tall and remember that what God said is what he's going to do. He's not going to give us more than we can take. He might let us bend, but never, ever break. And so we want to talk about that, like God's grace. God's grace is simply the ability to put one foot in front of the other. When you feel like you can't. And the thing about God's grace, what's so amazing about it, is that it's available according to the need. And I think that we forget that, Dave. Oh, I forgot to tell you about Satan. Didn't I forget to tell you about that? I got to do that. Okay, so my son's friends for a long time, my oldest son's friends, they really loved me. And then they chose to hate me, and that was okay. I was okay with that because I was willing to give up what I wanted most for what I wanted now. And what I wanted most for those young men was for them to realize that they were capable of such incredible levels of greatness, and that to accept mediocrity socially, sexually, morally, academically, athletically was not something I was going to stand for, and neither was my man. And so this young man, I won't say his name, but he has proven to be somebody, the one who called me Satan, proven to be one of the greatest friends my son Carter has ever had. He is his greatest supporter and confidant. And he sat in my kitchen just last week, and he said, I just want you to know I understand what it is that you were trying to do. And you and Mr. Hare did more for me than anybody. And I don't think I realized it at the time, Dave. Like, it was so great for him to say, and Mrs. Hare, I will parent the same way you parented. And so there it is. Like, that's my affirmation. That's my confirmation. And I'm not here to tell you I'm doing everything right as a parent, because the biggest room in my house is the room for improvement all the time, every time. But what I can tell you is, for every time I wondered if doing hard things would end up yielding good things, I know at the end of the day that I won't accept mediocrity, Dave, and not because it's not good enough, but because God has placed within us the grace to get through every one of those situations, to give up what we want now for what we want most. And we know that, Dave, the grace might be delayed, but it's never denied. It is immediate, it is available, and it is something we got to tap into, Dave. So every time you're saying, are we going there again? Is anything going to change? We've been through this before. You got to remember, God is saying, I'll do what I do because I am who I said. Dave, don't you love that? Is that an encouragement for today?
You ended on a high note.
I ended on a high note, but guys, I got to tell you that I have notes all over the place, and I have no idea what we even talked about today, except to remind you that we just keep planting seeds in every area of our life, and God will cause them to grow in His way, in His time. And in the meantime, His grace is sufficient for you. So know that. And this week, keep it hot, honest, open, and transparent. Peace out. I don't even think that was really a show.